something that the Lord, Tim comes to us oftentimes throughout the year as elders and says, hey, I think I'm going to preach on, or what do you think I should preach on? And the spiritual gifts was one that all of us felt like was something that this church needed. And last week with finishing the spiritual gifts series, there's just a couple things I wanted to share from a personal testimony, just to kind of bring it home and bring it all together. It's about a 12-week series. If for those of you who haven't been here, go back and check it out. And Tim initially started about talking about the importance of being part of the body. And I want to go there a little bit, kind of go back to the beginning and just do this. One of the things that I've realized with spiritual gifts is that it is one of the main reasons why we should understand our spiritual gifts is because it allows us to be who God has called us to be and fulfill the mission that God has called us to do. But on top of that, it wards off a lot of issues that we personally might have and that the devil might try and use to try and attack us. And so I'm gonna share a little bit about that in a minute, but let's look at Matthew 25. I don't have this in the thing, but I'm just going to read quickly the parable of the talents. Matthew 25, Jesus says, again, the kingdom of heaven will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey, and the man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. The man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I've gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. What a vivid picture Jesus gives us whenever he talks about how we are called. The kingdom of God is all about stewardship and stewarding things well. You know, it's very important that, and one of the main reasons why we live and we move and we have our being is because God designed you to bear fruit. And whenever you are not walking and carrying your talents correctly and stewarding them correctly, fruit is not born. Each one of us, me, Tim, Nathan, Tony, Kristen, Mike, all of us are going to stand before Jesus one day. And he's going to ask us, so I gave you 22 talents. I just made up a number. I gave you 22 talents. What'd you do with them? And I am going to have to give an account before Jesus as to how I used what I did with what he gave me. And Tony's going to have to do that. And Kristen's going to have that. And you know what? I'm not going to give an account for Kristen. I'm going to give an account for me. Deb's not going to give an account for Tim. Tim's going to give an account for Tim. Deb's going to give an account for her. And so each one of us individually are going to give an account with how we steward our gifts, how we steward with what the Lord has given us. I think it's a very important concept. One of the things that I wanted to bring out too, and just this, I'm kind of just shotgunning a few things here because these are kind of wrap-up thoughts as we end spiritual gifts, some things to take away that are beyond just what's my gift. So one is I'm going to have to give an account for what I do with it. After all the stuff that you've heard the last 12 weeks, one day you're going to give an account for what you do with that. Second, some are given gifts that seem to be lesser gifts or ignoble. And we see this in 1 Corinthians 12. 1 Corinthians 12:21 says, the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and the parts that we think are less honorable we treat with special honor, and the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has combined the members of the body and has given greater honor to the parts that it lacked, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for one another. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. And we've heard this, the whole concept of if you stub your little toe, like seriously, how that affects you. My mom broke her shoulder a week and a half ago. Her right shoulder, let's put it that way. Do you know how much that is affecting all of us right now? Hi, Mom. I love you. I know you're online. It's affecting a lot of us because you know what? One part of the body is really important, but really all parts of the body are really important. But some of them don't feel as important. I did this lesson a couple weeks ago with our homeschool group. I was talking about the different gifts, and I gave each of them little gifts, and I just called their name randomly, and I said, okay, it was funny because it was my daughter and my nephew, and I said, okay, Blade, here's yours, and it was a magic eraser, a Mr. Clean magic eraser. I was like, this is your gift, and you get to use it. And then I drew the next things out, and I drew Lily's name, and they were 2 lollipops. Don't you think that the lollipops seem like a better gift to have? And how often we do that as individuals. I look at Bean and I say, dude, I really wish that your gifts are so much better than mine. I wish I had your gifts. But you know what? When it comes time to it, God doesn't care whether you have the magic eraser or whether you have the lollipops. He wants you to use what he's given you. And so the lollipops aren't lesser and the magic eraser isn't lesser. Each one needs to be used for the purposes that God has established them for. Lollipops maybe rat your teeth, but no, I'm just kidding. That was to represent the gift of giving. She was given 2, but she had to give them away. So that's one of them away. The body has to have an armpit. The human body has to have an armpit. There's a lot of nerves in the body, but there's only one optic nerve. And so you can be a nerve and play an important part, but you might not have, quote unquote, in your eyes, the same importance as the optic nerve. But you know what? All the nerves have to function. When I fell down the stairs last year and I pinched a nerve in my back, it didn't matter that it wasn't my optic nerve, it was the nerve that hurt, right? And so this is the idea that there's not a lesser gift or a more gift, all the gifts. If one part suffers, the whole part suffers. When one part rejoices, the whole part rejoices. All the gifts are important. And all the gifts are equally valid and equally important. If the enemy can fill you with discontentment for your gift, or comparison, or jealousy, he can effectively, can you come up and do this, Tim? He can effectively shut this off. Now this has been in the sanctuary for about 3.5 years because Tim used this as a sermon illustration a long time ago about how when the enemy comes with condemnation or comparison, he takes what's supposed to be a vessel used for his glory and he shuts it off. And so that's what this valve is representative. So this valve right here, in this case, represents discontentment with my gift. Or it represents comparison with my gift or with other people's gifts. Or it represents jealousy. Oh my goodness, we don't like that word. But you know what jealousy does? Jealousy, that's really hard to turn. Jealousy does that. Discontentment does that. Comparison does that. That's good, thank you. And so from a personal just story and testimony as I end today, this was me for a while. And I can't say that I have always just not liked everything that the Lord gave me as a gift. I like certain things. But when we took over as lead pastors, that was probably one of the hardest things in my life. Living with the lead pastor. Okay, it was one of those things where I struggled because I wanted the gift that he had. So there was a part of me that was jealous. There was part of me that was in competition. There was part of me that was never really satisfied with the fact that, doggone it, he has the final word. And you know what? If we agree on a lot of things, most things, but there would be these things where I would do it different, and his way was the one that would get done. And there was this issue that was developing in my heart, and it was caused a lot of marital tension. I struggled with my role. I struggled to know how I was supposed to walk that out. But it was through the Lord clarifying my gifts, clarifying who he's made me to be, and saying, Lauren, you are called and you've been gifted this way because you are the one who I want to do this. And he is called and gifted this way because he's the one I want to do this. And it was this understanding of gifts that really caused a whole ton of freedom to be found in my life and in our marriage and in a relationship, and a lot more peace and a lot more unity, and just understanding that God doesn't make mistakes when he hands out gifts, even if they don't feel like, oh, it's not as good as his, or it's not whatever. It's not as good as Tony's, or, I can't, oh my gosh, I can't build anything. I can't help like Mike at all, man. But you know what? God doesn't want me to be the one who's helping. God wants Mike to be the one who's helping. And so one of those things that it's just really important, I just wanted to really challenge us as we wrap up this spiritual gifts kind of series, is be careful not to get into the trap of comparison and jealousy and just discontentment. If that is you, I would love to pray for you at some point. I mean, I really would love to agree with you that the Lord's going to break that off, because so many people are sidelined in the kingdom because they are comparing their gifts with somebody else, or they feel like their gifts are less than, or they're not good enough, or they want to be somewhere when God doesn't have them there. I'm so thankful for how the Lord wired me. I really am. And the Lord really gave me such revelation to, if I would have made you like Tim, I couldn't have you do what I want you to do over here. And if Nathan was made like Ruby, he couldn't be the same. And Jackie like Pat, and all this, each part is so strategic. He is so strategic, guys. He's so strategic in how he gifts us. And so I just challenge you, develop gratitude for the gifts. As you are, gratitude for one another, gratitude for the gifts that's in one another. And as you do that, the Lord will bring freedom if you are one of those that struggle with that.